Go.
Is that you counting me in?
Yes. 3, 2, 1, go.
Welcome, ladies and gentlemen. Oh, I hate people who say welcome, ladies and gentlemen, and I did it. Welcome.
Oh, how very non-binary, non-PC are you, man? Oh, God.
No, it sounds a bit 80s Saturday morning TV. Ladies and gentlemen. All right, boys and girls. Anyway, boys and girls, welcome to the big 3-0. That Guy's a Maniac, the podcast, episode 30. We are here, two middle-aged gamers rambling about games from 10 years ago, not talking about anything that's coming out, with some stale takes and some bitter lemons. I'm your host, Farley, aka Kanzi11. I am joined by my fantabulous assistant,
Richie?
And Richie.
Oh, no way. Yeah, hi.
We've got something different lined up for you today, but first, where can you find the That Guy's a Maniac brand, Richie?
Well, we are branded at That Guy's a Maniac, all one word, and we are available on all the social medias, such as your Twitters, your Instagrams, your YouTubes, and your Facebooks. Yeah, at That Guy's a Maniac. Yeah.
That Guy's a Maniac. Why did he bite me? And we just couldn't bring you this content for free. The talent costs money. Who helps us in this mission, Richie?
Well, this week, the lovely folks at the mega corporation of Bowser Oil are here to service all of our destroying the Mushroom Kingdom's fossil fuels needs. Bowser Oil.
Thanks.
Cheers, guys.
Thanks, Bowser Oil, for destroying the Mushroom Kingdom. What are we talking about this week?
So this week we are going to have a little chat about a rather contentious point, at least a contentious point between Farley and myself, which is about the price of games. Now, I want to take you back to a little time when the Switch had been released and there was talk and tale of a little game, you might not have heard of it, called Resident Evil 4. Which came out, I don't know, what was it, 2006? But on the Switch, they decided to re-release it. Now, I jonesed a little bit. I was thinking, you know what, I quite fancy playing Resident Evil 4. I already own it on 19 other systems. I think I'd like...
2005 it came out.
2005, okay, good. Thanks to my lovely assistant there for pointing out that point.
Well, you knew you were going to talk about it. I
I
couldn't have googled Resident Evil 4.
No, I don't even do 5-minute prep anymore.
Weird, because it doesn't show.
Right, stop it. Right, what was my train of thought? We were talking
That was for the Nintendo GameCube 2005.
Okay, cool. Right, great. Maybe I was talking about the PS2 version, which came out in 2006.
Let me just check what our research is saying.
There you go, listeners. This is the best quality airwaves being filled up. Oh, excellent. We even get to hear your PC making noises.
Yeah. Unfortunately, the word PlayStation does not appear on the Wikipedia page for Resident Evil 4.
Oh, well, there we go. So it never got released on the PlayStation.
No. 2007 was the Wii version.
Okay.
PlayStation was 2004.
What?
2005, sorry.
Alright, okay, cool. Right, fuck
It's
it.
the same year.
That doesn't
Crazy.
seem right. That does not seem right. I remember there was like so much gumph about that being the Oh, fuck it. Anyway, my point being was Resident Evil 4 recently got released.
Subsequently, it was released on the Wii.
On the Switch. Can we just let me get through this point?
No, I'm wanting you to get back to the place we were, so I'm deliberately just annoying you until then. I think that's it.
Okay, good. Right. Okay.
What are you saying?
Resident Evil 4 was released on the Switch, and despite my desire to almost play it, or want to play it on the Switch, or even just own the fucking game for yet another platform, I was a little grumpy about the fact that it was released at something like, and again, I didn't do the research, don't fucking start, but it was released at something like £19 or something like that. And I was a little bit miffed that a game that came out in 2005, thanks Farley, was coming out on the Switch at a very high premium when you can actually already buy it for other platforms such as the PS4 or the Xbox One or even the PC for a fraction of that price. And like, you know, it's like a 6 quid or something like that, you know? And I thought, this is a ridiculous amount of money to be bringing it out on the Switch for that amount. So that bothered me quite a bit.
$15.99.
$15.99. Okay, $15.99 on the Switch. So it's a tenner extra, basically. And we've referred to this.
$18.99 on the PlayStation 4.
What?
It's $18.99 on the PlayStation 4.
Bullshit. Absolute bullshit. It was like 6 quid or something. Nah. No way. Okay. Then, well, you're just sort of fucking over my entire point here.
So £3.
£3 more expensive on the the PS4.
Yeah. How'd you get as a Scottish man outraged at the price of games?
Well, okay, like if we take Resident Evil 4 on the Steam, fuck it, I didn't spend more than a tenner on this game.
Okay,
I must have been fucking sales and shit like that. But my point was, there is a difference for paying that much money, $19.99
less than a pint.
Where? All right, okay, yeah. But the point is, there is this is the worst example. Should have researched it, motherfuck. But yeah, I think at the time it was released on the Switch, there was a solid Capcom sale on the go. So it was like 6 quid versus 20 quid. I was raging purely because Resident Evil 4, it's an old game coming out of the Switch again, 20 quid. It's a bit much for the same game over and over, you know? But yeah, I was a little angry at the price of it when it first came out, and I thought, it isn't worth paying this amount of money again. And I felt like it's a case of this game is old, it's only been ported. Why are we paying almost like a premium just to play it on another platform?
£3.
Yeah, exactly. That premium.
Yeah.
But that being said, I still feel it should be cheaper in general for an older game. You know, it's a good game, don't get me wrong. I still think the prices should be lower. But to this event, which has been so beautifully reconstructed for the listeners, in general, what happened with that was you got angry with me for expecting the things to be cheaper, and you were saying things like, then just don't buy it. Just don't buy it. You don't need it, don't buy it. Doesn't matter. It's not your problem. That's how much it is. You don't need to buy it if you don't want it. Which is a very, very, very fair point. But my my grumpy nature was like, but I kind of want that game, and I would buy it even just to fucking own it rather than even play it again. But I would prefer it at a much lower price point, and I kind of feel like it should come in at a lower price point.
Do you hear how mental you are?
No.
That game is too expensive for me to buy and never touch. But I want to buy and never touch it. Outrageous.
It's a very extreme example. I know what you're saying, but the price of games is definitely an issue that is... Alright, how do you see that take? You remember when we were grumpy, and I know... Yeah.
I was in a bar waiting for a friend to turn up. And we actually got... which rarely happens in our friendship. And we've had a few things happen. But yeah, we both really got eggy with each other about it. And I think my point was that coming out on the Switch means it's portable, right? So I remember taking the piss out of you because you were saying, oh, it's only £4 on PC or whatever. Yeah. And I was like, okay, bring your PC and your keyboard and your monitor along on your commute then, if you want to save £5, and I'll just be playing it on my Switch. So the Switch in particular has this thing where you can play games anywhere, right? Which was much more of a compelling option when the fucking Joy-Cons didn't just fucking drift all the time. So you are getting something extra when it comes out on the Switch. However, I'm not too convinced. I don't think that argument's too important. It depends. If you don't get TV time and you only play the handheld Switch, or you only have the new Switch, then that's fine. We've never been able to play Resident Evil 4 on the go before. And then the other point was, which I think is where perhaps we're going to have more room to discuss, is just the insanity of the pricing of games, right? So Resident Evil 4, widely acclaimed as one of the best games of all time. There's a reason why it's been ported. It still holds up. The reason why you wanted to buy it and the reason why I wanted to buy it was because oh yeah, I like Resident Evil 4. You put it on and then you forget how brilliant it is and all the different areas and stuff like that. And it's just bizarre modern assumptions about how much games should cost that is all tied up with how cheaply you can get some games, and not the fact that this is a work of art or not.
Fuck. Tune into not 2 weeks ago's podcast for further. Yeah.
That's very good. It was put together by a huge team that spent however much on it, and so as a product, as a very good product, as a highly acclaimed product, there's no reason why it should arbitrarily be cheaper just because it's old, and if you apply that same logic to books and films, right, you should be able to pick up the classics, the entire works of Shakespeare for £1, or re-releases of The Godfather, right? I don't know why we use these two examples over and over again. Maybe we're more imaginative. But the Godfather trilogy should be £3 because it's old and it's not new.
Well, I mean, that that actually does stand reasonably well, because you do find that, especially with movies that have like made their way to Netflix and or indeed Prime, where you can still rent them and things like that, the older ones do tend to get a lesser price, you know.
You also find special edition remastered versions for 200 quid. With a hologram of whatever. And so there's a bit of that when you play things on a new system as well.
But yeah, I mean, the tough thing with it all is, like, because we lived in that transitionary period between games actually being published and distributed on hard media and now everything being just sort of digital or mostly digital, it still bothers me that there is some kind of subsidy happening, especially in the world of Nintendo Switch as well. Like, you can buy sometimes the physical version on release for less than you can the digital version on release for the Switch, and I have just no fucking clue what is happening there, why that's happening. Like, if you're gonna pay for the hard copy, surely you should be paying more, because you have to factor it in, or is that just basically everybody who buys the digital version is subsidizing the ability for people to get a hard copy? What the hell? That bothers me. Like, there isn't a consistency there. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, and in fact we're seeing the fully going the other way with companies like Limited Run Games, which are selling physical copies, with a box, and often an art book, a postcard, a badge, or whatever. But they're turning games which previously were not available physically into physical games. And if you jump onto the various communities on Reddit and Instagram, there's this whole community of people who are really into buying limited edition physical copies of games, and basically just displaying their shelves.
No, I know, like
shelves and shelves. So yes, in that case, the physical copy is way, way, way more expensive than the digital copy, and in some cases, coming out 5 years after originally released, because they have to do licensing and stuff like that. But I do think,
I think those are special cases. Those are special limited edition ones. I'm talking about Pokemon Sword Shield on release was actually cheaper to get and buy the hard copy version of it rather than just get the digital version from the Nintendo store. I mean, that makes no sense to me. Not special edition or anything else like that. It was just straight up, we're selling this for £38, whereas if you want to buy it on the Nintendo store, it's $45, and you're like, what the fuck? Where is this coming from?
Yeah, I think that there's always going to be retailers who can, if on launch weekend, they are a couple of quid cheaper, then it just drives sales their ways. Relatedly, when I used to work in the bookshop, it was around the time that I don't really know Harry Potter that well. The fat Harry Potter book came out, the one with the phoenix on the back. So I worked at a commercial bookshop, an academic bookshop, and basically the entire book industry was hanging on the latest Harry Potter release. And then when your super huge supermarket, like Asda, was able to knock £2 off the price of Harry Potter, the rest of the book industry was just trembling. Cause it's like, well, that's us fucked then. That's our big number one thing this year. Everyone's just going to go straight to Asda, and because Asda's not just a bookshop, they can knock £2 off. And during the launch window, we've just completely lost however many hundreds of thousands of copies that we bought in.
It's kind of like that's like how Cineworld just went bust because they were waiting and hanging on the new James Bond film coming out. Didn't come out. Yeah. Oh well, that's us. We're done.
Yeah. But I do I do think, and I've complained about this a lot on the That Guy's a Maniac blog, www.thatguys.co.uk, a number of times, because this ridiculous price war essentially means that games, especially in the UK, especially England, just don't have any visibility on the high street anymore, right? It's not viable to be in the business of selling games. We don't really have GameSpot. We have the big chain Game, which periodically collapses and they shutter their stores and then
GameStop, not GameSpot. GameSpot's the website, I think.
What's the other one?
GameStop.
There was another one. No, there was GameStop, and then there was another one that we had a few stores. Anyway,
yeah,
it's now no longer possible. And I remember seeing this when I lived in central London. We really saw the transition from had a handful of independent game stores, including one which was around the corner from Future Publishing. So you'd get all these preview discs with big bold letters in the front saying "not to be sold." So you could go and pick those up from the guys at Future Publishing who've been scalping them. And you could get your retro stuff. You could pick up your Mega Drive things, and you go down the road, and there was Zavvi, and there was the big HMV, and then there was another big game, an arcade, and then another indie store. And I remember within about 12 months, all of those shut down. I think the last one being HMV, which then occasionally reopens in the centre of London and then shuts down. FOP as well. They didn't really do games.
The FOP are dead as well.
Yeah, I know, but they keep coming back to life as well, and then dying again. But in any case, it just seemed like, because I think having a presence on the high street is really important for the kind of the mainstream idea that games are something that is a fine thing to do, and when it just completely disappeared, it just loses that visibility. But I was fighting against the grain. I was actively inconveniencing myself right up until the end to try and get things on the high street. And you'd end up, they didn't end up not having stuff in. So I remember, it's timely actually, because Pikmin 3 Deluxe is just coming out on the Switch. I remember when Pikmin 3 originally came out, and God knows what system. Is that Wii U?
I'm going to say Wii.
Yeah, and I think anyway. I remember being excited about it. And on launch day, went to my local game store, asked them about it. They kind of had no idea that it was even out or coming out. They definitely didn't have any copies. I think one of the shop assistants said, no, it's not out yet. And I was like, well, this just could have been sat at home now. But I thought I'd try and spot the high street. And not only is it not here, but they also don't really seem to have an idea about it. And I know Pikmin 3 is not a huge release, but so yeah, and so that saddened me somewhat to kind of see the death of the high street. But I think it is also combined with this just ridiculous notion of the pricing of games, and I think when we fell out a little bit about it, I think one of the points I raised was it's insanity. There is an near infinite amount of content out there, and as we talked about a couple of weeks ago, you could, if you bought yourself a Switch or a PlayStation or the new Xbox, you could quite easily fill hundreds of hours with free to play or free to start games. I never really need to buy another game, and to me that just, something's gone wrong in games publishing. The way to make your game huge is to make it free, and try and recoup some costs, either through microtransactions or just by having a monopoly, right? Just by being the biggest game, and so you get all the eyeballs on it.
Yeah, to be honest, we see eye to eye on free to play in most situations. I dislike them for slightly different reasons. You like, I delve into it knowing well that there is a loop and that there is a means to get you addicted and make as frictionless an experience as possible to get you to pay money, as opposed to there being a game. Whereas you will, ooh, a Pokemon game, it's free, I'm going to play the free-to-play version to death. You know, it's like you approach it from the game. I go in there with sort of like trepidation, and I know that there's going to be that filthy mechanic of just trying to onboard you, and that sort of level.
We've not, for some. I mean, you know, those are definitely out there, and you know, we will become aware of the idea of the whales, right? So you make something free with a few microtransactions, and it's the handful of people who go fully in.
The South Park episode explains it really well. Yeah.
But on top of that, there are also fantastic full free-to-play games. So the one I'm thinking of in particular is Warframe. Which is thousands of hours, and it's not really scummy in the way that, you know, you can get to level 8 and it'll be great, and then there's a difficulty spike and you're like, you know, keep bouncing off of it. It's not structured in that way at all. You never need to make a purchase.
Does it have ads? Because that's the other big thing that, especially on mobile, is But yeah, on mobile, it's just like, now it's just play the game for 1.7 minutes, and every 1.7 minutes, a ad will appear, which you have to watch for 30 seconds.
Yeah.
And that's it, you know. Yeah, no,
just
okay.
A fully fledged game. And you can pay for the new content as it comes out, but if you wait long enough, inevitably most of it kind of comes to you as a player. You can also pay for you know, getting your guild insignia image accepted.
What about leveling and sort of mechanics? There's no paying for like a better weapon to sort of move you up to your mate's levels and things like that, or something?
No, not really. They're quite generous with, you know, there's like a daily login bonus. So occasionally they'll hand out, you know, some EXP or gold buffs, and you'll be like, I could buy some of these. But they hand them out, you know, regularly. It's
okay.
Not scuzzy and particularly scummy, and again, that's a game that you can.
But I feel like that is an exception more than anything else, because 99% of everything else out there that is free is gonna be done with a very smooth. Don't get me wrong. It's not like scummy, but it's more like smooth and behind the scenes. Definitely psychological manipulation to get you to have a frictionless experience, so that you can spend those monies to, you know, to make the game, to make the game money, or in whatever fashion it wants, you know.
So that's where we are, but I'm kind of more interested in how we got here, because as with the Resident Evil 4 example, and as we know, it takes years and normally a whole group of people working to put a game together, and then I distinctly remember and then he tuts because he can't remember one of the new Tomb Raider games coming out. And so when it came out, it was, you know, whatever, $34.99. And within the week, I think not even 7 days had passed, and it was £10. You know, available for £10. Hard copy. This is before digital had really kicked off. And to me, that's just insane, right? And then that is okay, it's make or break. I guess this is before games as a service really taking off. It's make or break on launch weekend.
Yeah.
So all the time and effort that we put into making this game, and then we've got, I don't know, 70%, 80%, 90% of our full price sales on the launch week, and then a long tail, which doesn't really help us. We either make or break on that first kind of sale.
Yeah.
Which is obviously unsustainable.
But, I mean, I think what you were sort of touching on earlier, it's like, why did we get here? And it's purely about distribution. I mean, obviously, in the past, in those ancient days where you would buy physical media and there wasn't a means for, digital distribution in whatever form it may be, even if it was blooming across, modems playing Duke Nukem or whatever it was, it is now just all about, like that transition from physical media to digital media. But when you move to digital, you lose not only the fact that you own something, but there's something less physical as well. Well, obviously there's something less physical because it's not physical anymore.
It's the entire product.
Yeah. But that's the thing. That transition and move to digital distribution, and like that is where people then had to start trying to find their means of making money. Yes, you can go through Steam. You could still go to the Pirate Bay, I'm sure, as well. But it's just kind of a case of like the way that companies are trying to make their money back, and yet you're still just paying for the right to play that game on a platform as opposed to owning the game. So like when you buy a game on Steam or Epic Store or Microsoft Xbox Store, whatever, all you're doing is buying the right to play that game for the time that store exists. So the moment Valve and Steam disappear, you're going to be placed in a position of, you can't have your games anymore. I'm sure there are, digital distribution rights and things like that, but I think that's going to be covered in terms and conditions. But like, the thing is, and what weirds me out as well, is you're only paying for that right. You get the code, you get the game that has been duplicated 90 million times all around, whereas I think with the physical media you felt a little bit special in that you owned one of however many were made. Do you know what I mean? I suppose that's where that to bring it back round to your limited edition ones, these guys who take digital games and make them into physical games. You know?
To a certain extent. I mean, it's quite. I think it's why I've ended up becoming more of a Nintendo gamer than in earlier console generations, definitely. Is because and everyone's grumbled. This is what really makes me scratch my head. Everyone grumbled about their slow move to digital, but at least on your Switch, you have those games, right? You don't have. There's no. Unless it's an online game, you download that game and that game sits on your Switch. As long as your Switch works, you'll be able to play that game. Whereas some of these other ways of doing digital are really tied into the game being live and you paying for a subscription. Blah.
And subscription's a very good argument, which we haven't touched on yet as well.
No, but I would just to kind of finish up on talking about kind of physical games. I think that in addition to what you were saying about, now you just kind of long term rent your game, and every now and then the switch or the server farm gets turned off here, there, and everywhere, and then it's just a case of keeping your hardware going. Whereas, as long as you've still got the disc in good condition, and your PlayStation 2, and your N64 and your GameCube, you can steep kill.
Steep kill. You can kill the steep.
Still keep going back to them. But the real tragedy, I think, or some of the extra layers of tragedy, I guess, with physical games are with the loss of physical games. One, you can't just share them anymore like you used to.
Yeah, I mean, there are ways to share your games now, and even PlayStation offered that ability to share playing. But no, I know what you mean.
Yeah. And then without the brick and mortar stores, and this is why I get so angry about the lack of retail, is you don't get that sense of, like you used to, going in and being able to browse, right? You don't really know what you want. So you're having a flick through, and you'll go and have a look at the GBA games, and you'll find a special Japanese import section, and you go, oh, I know nothing about this game, look at this kooky cover, and this ridiculous title, I'll pick it up. Now we're just relying on on digital storefronts, which just are not the same, and there's been pages and pages and pages written about essentially why some of these games do these deep cuts to try and get on the front page of the digital store, and then that way X many people picking your game up at 10% of the cost is way better than 1% of people picking up at 100% of the cost. And then the last point, I guess, on physical is like with those independent stores, like with those retro stores where they still exist, is you can enjoy and browse the whole history of gaming. Because obviously, if you're reliant on these proprietary current format digital stores, essentially you're locked down to what you can buy and play on this system, rather than the full kind of spectrum of games. In the same way that you can walk into like an indie record store or a bookshop. Unfortunately, you can't walk into DVD stores anymore because they don't really exist. But you have the whole kind of history of the medium, and not just the latest thing that you're being sold. And so with that disappearance,
as you're speaking, and just to very quickly interrupt, I feel we're talking in exactly the same way as these vinyl files talk about, like how great records sounded and how good it was to own a record album, and like how digital ruined everything.
But the difference is record shops still exist.
Only as vintage, No.
You go in, you have your vintage on one side, you have your what was it I saw the other day? Crazy independent video game soundtrack on vinyl. Quite a lot of money. Most record stores.
I could not tell you the location of any record store. I don't know if it's a little different where you are, but no.
Yeah, look it up. You'll be surprised.
Okay.
Yeah. So I'd say it's a really good analogy, except record stores still exist.
I mean, any record store that I could think of or I've ever seen is basically a second-hand record store, and that's it. Like you still get second-hand computer game stores, CEX, it still exists out there, and it has a massive catalogue of old video games, even down to GBA games and things like that. So I'm not sure I see your point there. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah. I guess, I don't know. I think if you're claiming any kind of CX is not the same as a record store. That's where people sell their jam-stained games for crack money.
Yeah. Regardless, you can still buy old second-hand games there. Yes, it has a stigma and a stinginess around it, and yeah, I get you. Jam-stained fucking controllers. I get you 100%. But at the same time, whenever I think of a vintage vinyl store, it is, there are shabby covers. They are, it's just like, it is not like newly produced fucking Japanese imports of video game soundtracks. Okay. And they are rare things, maybe found at like Camden Market or something like that. Not on the high street. I don't know. Maybe different. Maybe it's just different based on where you are. But like, I'm thinking even back in Glasgow, I knew there was a record store. I went back to Glasgow like a couple of months ago, and that record store is now a coffee shop, like every other fucking shop in Glasgow. It's just a fucking coffee store. I don't know. I find it hard to get on board with that analogy of the vinyl thing. What I was meaning was like, the way that we're talking about physical media is similar to that of a vinyl file, talking about the feel of opening up a new vinyl and putting it onto a record player, and its analog sound being vastly superior to that of digital and all that sort of stuff. I don't think we're making that.
I don't think we're making that complaint at all. I don't think they're analogous.
Okay.
Yeah, because the difference there is that analog sound is better than digital.
Yeah.
If you talk to right, as is pre-digital photography better than.
Okay, all right. Scrape that bit, but maybe just the actual physical
vinyl
owning.
Issue as well is that you have to listen to the oeuvre in a specific order. So you buy an album and you have to listen to the album in a curated order. So there's many different arguments there. What I'm saying is that it's impossible to do that kind of browsing that we used to do. By just popping down the GameStop and kind of flicking the game shop and flicking through what's there, or discovering that, or maybe I will buy the Resident Evil 4 Limited Edition with that stupid chainsaw controller. Just because it's there. Whereas now, it's relying on digital storefronts, which, as we know, are just not fantastic. And then I think, obviously it's a combination of all of these things coming into play, which to try and swing us back round to the pricing of games. And I think your reaction to Resident Evil 4 is also, particularly for PC gamers, is which we've both said many times, I'll wait for that to come up on sale.
Yeah.
There's no point, or the only point of me buying things right now is that I can be on the
zeitgeist.
Or to not get spoiled, or to perhaps be part of that wave of people who are buying and playing and discovering things at the same time. But very rarely, and particularly in the day and age in which we live, when games are fucked for the first week,
I know.
They come out.
I mean, with PC games, people are fucking nuts. It's like everybody's banging on and so excited about Cyberpunk 2077, and like, oh no, it's been delayed to December, and like, oh no, you're gonna have to wait till December, till you have to wait another 2 months till the game actually fucking works. You know, it's like that. I mean, that is just so stupid, and it's the same with every other fucking Bethesda game. It's like, there's no point buying Fallout 5 on release. Just wait for the gold edition, which has all the expansions on it as well. Yeah. You know, just fucking wait. And even then, it'll still be buggy as fuck. But there will be people online who will say, oh, in order to get around this bug, all you need to do is X. And then you're like, good, great. That's how you have to play these games. You cannot. Yeah, it's very hard to get excited about a Bethesda game on launch. Oh yeah, great, the new Elder Scrolls game. Okay, I will see you there a year after its launch. You know.
Yeah. I was, it was this, and it's getting the same with many console games, particularly those which are ported from PC. So I was talking about oh my god, what was it called? The underwater one.
It's Subnautica.
Thank you. All I can think of is Sequest DSV.
On VHS.
On VHS. So I was looking, when I was looking, should I pick that up for the PS4 or wait till it comes out on Switch? And the complaints, which still litter the kind of forums and Reddit and whatnot, from the launch of that game on the PlayStation and the Xbox, which just it just doesn't work. So I was buying it late enough that it works a little bit more.
Yeah,
still broken in a specific way. And so I guess we've got that also to contend with, right? And now, even the latest Pokemon game, which would say was a big Nintendo release, is coming out a bit creaky, right?
Well, I mean, the best example of that was the one on the 3DS. Don't save in Paris, otherwise
it's save in Lumio's city.
Yeah,
because it'll wipe your game.
Yeah,
Whereas before, it didn't just come out. But then, interestingly, I'm kind of come across as a proper Nintendo fanboy, but this has always been the case. Nintendo somehow managed to ring fence their own first party titles. So unlike Tomb Raider whatever, which goes from 40 quid to 10 quid in a week, Mario Kart 8 on the Switch, which is now a 3-year-old game, still retails at CEX on Amazon for around 30 quid.
Yeah.
Which is a bit of a discount. And it was the same with Mario Kart 8 on the Wii U, Mario Kart Wii, which was this hugely successful game, and until the Wii U came out and kind of superseded it, it was still secondhand at the £20-30 price point.
Yeah, I mean, that's a very, very good point. It's like Nintendo definitely do a better job of keeping games expensive. When you compare it to like Steam, and there's the converse to this is actually GOG, Good Old Games. Those guys that actually take games from the late 90s and things like that and make them work again on current PC. Oh god. But yeah, and that is weird how I will happily pay a premium because I feel like there has been more work done. Whereas with Resident Evil 4 appearing on the Switch, it's like, alright, great. Fantastic work, guys. Have you done anything to it? No. Okay, cool. No, not interested, It's like it was the same remaster that came out on the PlayStation 4 and came out on the 360. But it's now on the Switch and it is more expensive than it came out for on the 360. And you're just like, oh. But yeah, okay, your argument about it being portable and all that sort of stuff.
You download it, and it's just Portal.
It's just yeah. But yeah, your argument about it being portable, yes, I get where you're coming from there. But the thing that bothered me was like, there's been nothing more done with this game, and yet it's more expensive than it was for the original remaster when it came out on the 360. And like, it's hard for me to get behind it, and that's what made me grumpy. It's like, years have passed, this should be cheaper.
Yeah.
But of course on the PC, that is true. Of most games, years pass, the games get cheaper, because ultimately all it is recycling and redistributing code over and over and over again.
Yeah.
You know, I know I use Steam as the like all powerful, every PC player uses it, all that sort of thing. I know that's not necessarily true. It is a fraction of the PC gaming community, but at the same time, it does seem to be sort of a very good basis, because you see the same thing repeated on the Epic Game Store or on EA Store or whatever. You know, it's like, I can take a good example of like a game that is like at the top of the storefront, in the top list of like the most played game at the moment, or most bought game. I love the fact that that's a thing, you know, and unabashedly, this is the top selling game at the moment. Like, okay, does that mean it's good? Or, you know, it's like, no, it's just the top selling. All of your friends are buying this. You should want to buy it as well. Okay. And like, okay, so it's Football Manager, you know, 2021. It's £40. In months, that's going to like be reduced to like, you know, £25. And then when Football Manager 2022 comes out, it'll be on super sale for $5.49 or whatever.
I mean, you know, the physical version of all of those sports games would be, you know, as soon as whatever 2021 comes out, the old bargain bins would just be like 90% FIFA 2019. Maybe you'd find a copy of, you know, Dead Space and Pokemon Coliseum, but 99% of those games would be.
You could see like a Borat sketch of like him going in and just sort of trying to sell his version of FIFA 19. Behind is just nothing but a CEX board of nothing but FIFA 19, you know, for whatever platform. Yeah,
and they're buying them back for like, you know, it's nothing. You have to pay them to take the old sports game off of your hands, because you know it's redundant. But I guess on your sorry, had you finished?
Maybe. Go on.
Okay. I guess on your mentioning of Steam, the two things came to mind. One of which, and I think gamers of our generation in particular are really bad at this, is we are just thinking about ourselves. Yeah. So yes, I have bought Resident Evil 4 2 times before, but you know, there are people who are, you know, were not alive when it originally came out, and are now of the age to buy and play. Although, is it 18 or 15? It's an 18. Okay, so they're not even old enough yet. 15.
I mean, we can argue about ratings.
Yeah. But I'm just saying, you know, this. So there's a certain element of these games are coming to a new audience, right? And just because you've already bought it twice, and just because you remember what you paid for it, because you've been playing games for 30 years, shouldn't necessarily apply to everybody. And then lastly, and you are a walking, talking example of this, I'm also guilty of this, we've got this broken mentality, right? There is so little value associated with games that we have most of us personally own more games than we could ever play, some of which we never even touch. So it just seems ridiculous to be, on the one hand, complaining about value for things we will never access or play. And to me, that the combination of that, there is currently infinite amount of games, hours of games to play, arguably not quite, a smaller infinite that you can play for free as long as you've got some machine to play it on, and yet at the same time we're all just collecting these vast digital libraries, and yet still have the gall. You're not alone to get angry at the price of games, and I just remember for years and years and years, PC gamers just wouldn't pay premium prices anymore. Just any game that came out over 20
absolutely. I mean, I'm looking right now, and in fact, I have a whole bunch of things in my wishlist cart. Ah, shit. Oh well. I missed that. There was a Halloween sale, which apparently ended a few hours ago. Oh well, guess I'm not buying them then. Turns out I don't want these games.
It'll be even cheaper.
Yeah. Or wait till Christmas, the next fucking sale that happens.
Yeah.
But there you go. That's a fucking prime example. Didn't want to buy these games. There's 152 games sitting on my wish list. On my wish list, just so that when they do get cheap, I get notified. Okay, you know what? I'll pick up this game for, $7.99 when it's usually 40 quid. Because I don't know. Maybe it's a weird meta game in itself. It's like, do I feel like I'm cheating the system? Or indeed, there's a weird thing I have. I hate TK Maxx. There's a reason I hate TK Maxx, and that is, it says everything is on sale. Nothing is on sale. It says, look at this thing, it was £40. Like, every fucking ticket in TK Maxx says was £40, is now $7.99. Fucking same pricing as the fucking Steam example. And then you're like, oh, look at that, that's 33 quid off, or 32 quid off. Do the maths right, Richie. I'm like, well, then that's a bargain. And there's so many people get suckered into that, that
you just remind us how many games you've downloaded on Steam and not
Sharp. Let me get to my point.
Okay.
The point is, like, everything in TK Maxx, everybody thinks is a bargain, when in fact it's not. It is just, it was at one point in its history, and we know fashion changes from season to season. It was at one point £40. It is now $7.99 because TK Maxx has bought a whole bunch of them, and they can make money at selling it at $7.99. It doesn't matter if some other retailer was selling it at 40 quid. TK Maxx are selling it for 8 quid. Good for them, great. But just don't go into TK Maxx thinking you're getting a fucking bargain. That's what bugs me, Yes, okay, I understand the sheer hypocrisy. 100% here. But at the same time,
literally just complained about the fact that you missed the Halloween Steam sale.
Okay, but again, go back to Steam.
Yeah.
The reason I don't want to buy things at full price anymore is because what is the price? And what is the fucking price of the game? Is it genuinely just its Steam price? It's Steam holiday sale price? Or is it actually, the price that they just leave it up at for the, remaining 51 weeks of the year, or until the next Steam sale?
Now, isn't that just your rabid consumptionist talking? Because now the actual quality, length, artistry of the game is you're not even talking about that, right? You're talking about I got this thing for slightly cheaper than I think I should have done, even though I'm probably
no. That's not my point. My point is, if you go into the Steam store right now, you will see a game for £40. I don't want to buy that for £40.
Right.
Even if I do want the game, because I now know, regardless, it will be made cheaper at a sale. And what makes me think, or because of my conspiratorial nature, I kind of feel like that sale price is actually the price that they're getting to make money at, and everything else is a price hike and a bonus. Do you know what I mean? And it's not. I don't know.
Are you even thinking about the game itself and I guess that's the other.
No, yeah, I mean, like it could be like
we've just got layers of ridiculousness, right? Because and you mentioned it just then. Because many games are multi-hour experiences, you don't know what the game's going to be like until you play it, right?
Yeah.
So
no, I know.
But always like a prospect.
No, there are games you can be excited about. There could be like, I don't know, let's say Football Manager 2021. I know that lots of people are going to buy that and think, yeah, I fucking love Football Manager. I really want to play the new Football Manager. I'm going to buy that for £40. And you're like, right, okay, good. But is that the price of the game? Why are you paying £40 for it? Because ultimately, in a sale, you're going to see it reduced by 25%, 50%, or whatever, And they're probably going to make more sales on that at that point, which makes me to take it back to the jumper for £8 in TK Maxx analogy. What is the real price there? £40 was never the real price. £40 is something to say that it is reduced from. The real price is how much you're paying for it. So the real price of Football Manager is, £20. But everything else is just, like a bonus. It is like additional whale money.
Yeah, but I guess your TK Maxx example is not a good one. Because unless you buy that jumper and then you just put it in your cupboard and never look at it or get it out again or touch it, then that's what's going on with games, right?
Yeah.
You know what the jumper is worth to you.
No, look, value and price. I understand there's a difference between the value and price, and yes, you value,
as an item that you would use.
What do you mean, like as the game, like? Oh yeah, and maybe me, I'm not the best example, but that Football Manager fan who's going to buy it on release, and I get annoyed because they want to buy it on release. It's just like. It's you're paying far too much of a premium for it.
Yeah.
Why are you paying?
What you should do is wait for it to come into a sale and then never download it.
Well, no. Look, you're tying me in. I do play quite a few of the games. I know.
But I'm not picking on you because I think you're exceptional or weird. In fact, you're probably on the less mental extreme as many Steam users who just there are tropes and memes about having hundreds of thousands of games that you will just never play, and to me that's just a sign of how little value we now associate with games, generally speaking.
But again, maybe it just goes back to that point that I was sort of saying, that you don't own the game, you own the right to play the game. So all you're paying for is that license to play it, the permission to play it. And that's why I think that collective nature comes into play. It's just like, oh, I want to be able to have the option to play it, and I'll pay that much for it. I might not play it, but I want to have the option to say that I own, this whatever game it is. And there are games that I own across several platforms because I just wanted to replay it on the PC or say that I have it for the PC because, I might be able to get mods for it or whatever else, It's just that choice there.
There is that choice, but because there's so little value in getting those games, there is no way that you could realistically ever go back to all of those games. And so I would argue, in fact, in some cases I'd say I might even prefer if games got more expensive and stayed more expensive. Because I think, the number of times we've talked about, we keep going back to, these formative games that we played growing up, when you would get a handful of games a year, and so you would spend, you would actually play, we're talking about having games that we have not played as just a regular thing. If I could go back in time and say to my younger self, don't worry about only having 2 or 3 games for the N64. In the future, you'll have so many games that you cannot play them all. So I think devaluing them so much. First of all, it means that there's a reason why the game industry is a fucking mess, right? It's a total fucking mess. Rare is it that any kind of development studio has any kind of permanence, right? It's boom bust. You worked in it. It's always, how good's the last game going to do? Oh, shit. Okay, we're going to have to dissolve the studio. Some of our team will go off and make their own studio, and they'll work on their game.
Or we're going to get partially absorbed by EA. Yeah.
Right. And any idea of unionization just seems to be fighting an uphill struggle for whatever reason. So I'd actively prefer if games you had to think a little bit more about which games you were picking up. They cost a bit more money went back to the development studios, so they weren't just living on, okay, we're remortgaging our houses to get this game out the door, or we're going to crunch to get it out because the company goes under, than the ridiculous situation we're in now, where there is infinite amounts of gaming hours to be had at a time when games are ridiculously cheap and most of them sit unplayed. Yeah,
there's a lot more machinations going behind, and it's not just about that initial launch as well. Distribution rights and sometimes developers, despite them being released on new platforms or different gaming platforms, just the developers don't even see that money. Distribution rights change, and it is wrong and it's weird, but how are we to know better?
That's another part of it, right? If there's a little bit more money in the games industry, perhaps it'd be a little bit more professional, and perhaps people would do these things properly.
But when somebody can churn out a little indie gem and get more, money than the biggest EA shenanigans going out, then it's just gonna, it's not gonna be a thing.
Yeah. But then unfortunately, that we all know this. It is whatever 0.0001% of indie games will end up being your Axiom Verges or your whatever.
Yeah. No. I don't get me wrong. I get that, but per head creation, your AAA titles that have your big Assassin's Creeds or your whatever else, your Gods of War, which have bigger credits than the biggest blockbuster movie credits for people who've worked on it. Whereas an indie game, which has had 3 people work on it, per head, they're making more money, even if it doesn't sell anywhere near as good as the AAA title. And that's why this skew exists in the games industry.
What skew?
For pricing. Like, why would a big AAA title, which has a massive amount of people, let's say it has 1,000 people working on it, you know, how much return are they going to get? They're not actually going to get any return because they're just being paid for their time. They're a cog in the wheel. The return comes from whether or not the studio continues to make more stuff. It doesn't matter who the artists are or who the developers are in any fashion. The difference is that in the same playing field where you see Football Manager 2001 with 1,000 credits in there, you'll still see, I don't know, an Among Us with 20, 30 people in the titles making as much or as more money per head, than the big, AAA titles. Like, there is definitely a skew there. That's what I was trying to get across.
Well, what's the skew? I'm sorry, I'm just not following.
Oh, I don't know how many ways to explain this. Like,
what is skewed? I don't. What's skewed?
The value or the price of a game which has 1,000 people can end up being the same price as an indie game which is made by 3 people.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
So that's that weird skew. So if you have a great big budget EA game or Sega game or whatever it is versus a little tiny studio, Two Worlds or whatever it is, there's going to be a massive skew because why are the AAA people doing what they're doing when it's not necessary to make games? And I suppose that's why we have these different distributions and ways of doing it. I don't know. I mean, I'm kind of losing my own point by repeating it over and over and over.
Okay. Yeah, I mean, I don't think it has any bearing on the why games are so devalued so quickly and so easily.
Why have big budget games?
Well, because they deliver that spectacle of experience. It's the same is true of films, right?
Yeah. Well, no.
That if you are the blockbuster and you throw a shit ton of marketing money at it, you will make X amount back on return on investment. But the games industry, with some exceptions, doesn't seem geared up like that.
No, it's not. Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, which is whereas, I don't know what it needs. I don't know what it needs. Like, does it need some price fixing cartel where the games industry is just like, come on, we're providing so much content, and the competition at the moment, right, is your Fortnite's that stupid one with the fucking spacesuits that everyone seems to be playing at the moment.
Among Us.
So to look at that, and say, okay, let's try and do the same, but obviously now we're working 2 years behind, to try and capture a percentage of those, the silly numbers of people playing it.
Yeah. Of course, the Battle Royales was a massive fad, and it still kind of exists, Yeah,
but that's just it's just how I don't know. It's like schoolboy football, I think. When instead of having when kids in the playground are playing football, everyone's just running after the fucking ball, right? There's no formation. There's no strategy. But if one team, did actually implement some kind of strategy, then they'd win, and that seems to be the case in gaming. Not everywhere, but there are these kind of trends where everyone's just running after the same football. Be it VR. Okay, everyone's doing VR. Okay, that was shit. Now we're kind of doing battle royales, and then at the moment it's okay. Now we're doing basically silly party games, silly online party games.
Well, yeah, I mean, there's the COVID need for that sort of stuff,
Yeah. Whereas if there was a kind of moment of realization, you go, okay, let's just not try and sell each other out all the time by releasing a huge game for free, and then I'm going to compete with you by releasing a huge game for free and run it as a games as a service, and people will be happy to pay for nothing. But even then, gamers complain about free games, and it's like, what?
Yeah, but there's no such thing as a free game, so you gotta be. Yeah.
So I don't. Obviously, we've not solved anything, but I don't see how this is obviously an unsustainable future for the games industry, and particularly at the moment when we're seeing a bit of a crush on your non-typical industries with the pandemic. It has the potential to
Oh, it definitely does. I mean, of all the industries, this is probably one of the best ones that can actually thrive within that work from home scenario.
Oh, I was talking the opposite.
No. It definitely is. Group collaboration, it definitely is a necessity. But I would say that most people can work from home if they have a powerful enough PC that they can plug into. You're talking. Yeah, work from home is not an issue. I think the games industry can definitely thrive in collaborative sort of mediums. So I don't think that's too much of an issue. But anyway, I think
game studios is just going to disappear because.
Well, I think virtualization of game studios is definitely going to be more of a thing. But I think that during this pandemic, I think we'll have seen a lot more pop up, and I think we'll see a lot more people who have the ability to create and make more games. Not necessarily AAA titles, don't get me wrong, but we will see more games on the market caused by the COVID pandemic, as opposed to TV programs. Nobody wants to see another fucking panel show with HD TVs instead of fucking people. It's but with games, people can collaborate on the cloud and create things very, very easily. It's practically what we do in studios already, so I don't think that's too much of an issue. But I think
financial solvency.
Yeah.
Lack of unionization and collapse of distribution.
They might be shite games, and the product management and project management will have to be fucking special to get it over the line and stuff like that. But I think there will definitely be a boom, especially in the indie sphere, because I think most indies do already work in that kind of virtual work environment. Anyway, I think we need to bring this to a close, because as much as we're rambling, we're kind of very much off topic about the price of games. So Farley, are games too expensive?
No, opposite. Too cheap.
Too cheap. Okay. I think they're too expensive. Have you worked on an ending for the podcast?
It's right about now that I think, man, we should have really worked on an ending for the podcast.
Yeah, we really need to do that. Yeah. Maybe I don't know. I like that. I like the sign off in the art one, which was kind of like "fuck this podcast." Spoilers, guys. Yeah.
I thought it was a bit violent.
Bit violent.
Yeah.
And then the dog licked your hand. I don't know. I guess. I mean, it seems a bit
Buy
trite.
Buy Resident Evil 4 and pay tip. Send $5. Buy it for $15.99 in the Switch store, and then email a £5 note to Capcom. It's a good game.
Maybe Resident Evil 4 needs to get more likes and subscribers, and people can donate to their Patreon, and they can then see Leon with his top off if they're part of the Diamond Patreon Kickstarter club, and yeah.
Psycho should be 50p because it's old and shit.